Tonight's activity is called Extreme Translation. What we're doing is we're trying to get members of the public to understand that when you're translating, particularly when you're translating a literary text, the meaning is not the only thing that you need to carry across. There can be other features of the text, whether it rhymes, whether sometimes it has something like not having the letter E. There are other things that might need to have priority. So we have a poem that goes, "May we add a little lamp." This is a translation of Mary Had a Little Lamb, but instead of the meaning being the most important thing, we've kept the syllables. We've asked people to do versions of pieces of Shakespeare, pieces of Burns, pieces of Beatles songs, and do the same thing to these. Translate them, but don't worry about the meaning. Just keep the syllables, or translate them without the letter E. Well, at the moment, in comparative literature particularly, and in modern languages, we're very interested in how do people translate avant-garde texts. So these are very difficult texts, things like that novel without the letter E, things like James Joyce, things like Mallarmé, things that seem to be somehow linked in to the language that they're written in. So how do we access these texts in a different language? What are the means that we use? Well, we need to employ these types of things, like prioritising different features of the text. And this isn't mad, this is the best way to translate them. So part of what we're doing tonight is try to show members of the public that sometimes what seems radical, what seems mad, is the best way to translate difficult modernist texts, for example. Well, when you take something like Mary Had a Little Lamb and you try and keep the sounds but not the sense, that silly example, may we add a little lamp. Something like the French group, the Oulipo, the avant-garde group that's been running for the last 50 years, they use this as the basis to then go on and write a literary text, to then go on and write a story. You've created something that's almost arbitrary, a silly story about a lamp, but then that inspires you to write the story. That's the scaffolding that then you use as your act of literary creation. And because this is something that's happening in quite important highbrow French literature over the last 50 years, it's something that we want to get people interested in, get people to see actually using translation like this as just the start of a creative activity is something that I can do. It's not something that a bunch of kind of radical outsider French artists have sole access to.